Ryne Nelson is better than the Babe. Magic Geno Suarez is hitting 260 home runs this year. And Pfilthy Pfaadt is locked in for 5 more years. All this and more coming up today on the T-Backs podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Baseball is back.
Perdomo makes the play.
And a high fly ball. No doubt about this. Home run Marte.
They're going to send the ball all the way around. Corbin Carroll with it inside the park. Answer back.
I'm Ivan Melendez.
Luis Gonzalez.
I'm Tori Lavello, and you're listening to the T-Backs podcast.
T-Backs podcast.
T-Backs podcast.
Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the T-Backs podcast, where we bring you all the hottest Arizona Diamondbacks tea and talk from this side of the Atlantic. We're proud to be Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast. And man, oh man, I said on my story earlier it was going to be a doozy, but yeah, it's going to be a doozy of a podcast because we've got 4 games to break down. The opening series is over, and the Diamondbacks have split it 2-2 with the Cubs in dramatic fashion. So, as is custom, we're going to break it down with a piping hot mug of tea. Today, I've got a cold and flu treatment in my mug today, so honey and ginger to try and sort out the problems with my voice that you guys are probably hearing. So, yeah, let's drink up and get into it. Right, game 1, let's review. Zach Gallen got the start, owing to the fact that a scheduling error on Tori Lavello's part doing some paperwork meant that we'll be seeing Corbin Burnes against the Yankees tomorrow instead of game 1 and opening day honors like we were all sort of expecting him to have. The Milkmen have found themselves in choppy waters and struggled to a loss, giving up 4 hits and finishing the game with a 9.00 ERA, which obviously isn't great. We're sort of just going to skip past that because I think a lot of people would have said, yeah, that was probably going to be Corbin Burnes' start. The paperwork didn't work out that way. We talked last week with a few guys, Alex D'Agostino included, about whether or not Tori Lavello giving Zach Gallen the opening day honors was part of our attempt to, maybe curry some favor, get him to stay with the Diamondbacks a bit longer with his approaching free agency, but Alex kind of shut that, and I was like, nah, we know Zach's going to the place that offers him the most money. I think this is just, fair game. This is his role traditionally in the organization. He's a professional, so is Corbin Burnes, so I don't think it matters too much. But yeah, the knock-on effect of that is we are going to see Corbin Burnes for the first time as a Diamondback in a road jersey on their way to the Yankees, and we'll give a little preview of that later in the pod. Let's move on. Game 2 came with Merrill Kelly, Merrill the mainstay, as the starter, and brought the Diamondbacks' first win of the season, including 2 Eugenio Suarez home runs, which added to his homer in Game 1, and then 3, and 4. So that's put him on course roughly to projected to hit 264 home runs in the 2025 regular season if he keeps up this pace, and that's a heck of a stat for you. I was at the MLB UK Clubhouse meetup yesterday in West London, and pretty much everyone there agreed he probably can't keep that up, but hey, why not? Let's come back to this show's traditional blind optimism and faith. Eugenio Suarez is going to hit more home runs in this season than any other batter in Major League Baseball history. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's not forget that there were people giving him, late running MVP shouts once Geno turned his form around in the latter half of last year. So it's Geno. I know it's Geno. Get out there and tell anyone who'll listen, go put the house on it. He took 37 games to reach 3 homers last year. Now he's hitting a moonshot every day. So I'd also just like to point out that, yeah, some of you will be screaming at your devices right now going, but Aaron Judge did it too. And yeah, of course he did. Have you seen the size of the Yankees' bats this year? They might as well be using tennis rackets. And so if and when the D-backs adopt the so-called torpedo bat, we'll talk about it, but that's not going to be what we're going to talk about today. Today, all we're talking about is our long-haired stallion raking his way to the first ever 200-200 season. And for that, I mean that's 200 home runs and 200 bottles of conditioner used, in case you were wondering. Watch this space. Geno Suarez, MVP 2025. Bit of an early call after only 4 games of the season, but we all know how good he is. He's a player that the Mariners were sad to lose out on. We know he's popular over in Seattle. Had a good run in Cincinnati as well, where he was a great clubhouse guy, good power there. every team he goes to, he's loved, and he's already said this is the team that he wants to retire on. He's clearly very happy out in the desert. So yeah, why not? If what he's doing is working for him, why would he go anywhere else? Why would we let him go anywhere else? We've got to tie him down longer term. There's been a plethora of extensions, and we'll get into some of those a bit later on in the show. But yeah, Geno Suarez, watch this space. While we're talking about Game 2, there's a little bit of a small side plot that I wanted to briefly mention as well that reared its head. And that was a matchup that took D-backs fans back a few years to a somewhat controversial trade. This was former number 1 pick and ex-Diamondback Dansby Swanson faced down against a current Diamondback pitcher and the player that they were traded for many moons ago, in Shelby Miller. And the end result is our new reliever struck out the ghost of Dansby on one pitch in Game 2 and earned the save. So, we definitely won that trade. I don't care what anybody says. And yeah, I know. When we got Shelby for the first time round, he was 3-12 that first year in Arizona. We got him as a starter that first time round, and Swanson being a first round pick. Shelby Miller came in, struck out the side on his first Diamondbacks appearance. That seems to be somewhat of an under the radar acquisition that we made in that offseason, but it's looking good. I liked his stuff. It was the sort of guy that you're thinking, oh, well, it's just adding a useful bullpen arm, and useful bullpen arms are always good, but we're not really sure what's going to happen with the Diamondbacks bullpen this year. Kevin Ginkel has started the year on the IL, and Torey's not named a closer, and yada yada. We'll talk about that too in a minute. But, yeah, Shelby Miller, good on you. The ghost of Dansby, though, would haunt the Diamondbacks through this series, and, yeah, more on that to come. Game 3 saw Brandon Pfaadt's first start of the year, fresh off of signing a new 5-year contract extension, which takes him through 2030 with club and then player/mutual options until 2032. So he's 26 now. Last year was an 11-10 record with a 4.71 ERA, 185 strikeouts, and a 3.61 FIP with 3.1 wins above replacement as per Fangraphs numbers. And threw 181 2/3 innings in his first full season. So, yeah, a bit of a no-brainer when you think about it in terms of why wouldn't you extend Brandon Pfaadt. We already had a few years of team control anyway, so it's not like we needed to extend Brandon Pfaadt, but it's a pretty good move by Mike Hazen. Excuse me. Yeah, it's a pretty good move by Mike Hazen. We've been locking down guys left, right, and central, signing extensions. Perdomo as well was a big deal, and getting these guys who are just about coming to their peak. They're young guys, still got room to develop. I think most people agree Brandon Pfaadt's number 2, maybe a number 1 guy in the future if he keeps working on his stuff. He's probably going to be the number 2 understudy to Corbin Burnes in a few years when the likes of Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen either depart through free agency or are traded. So, yeah, we know he can have absolutely electric stuff. Sort of burst onto the scene a little bit with some NLCS performances, but on his day, he's almost unhittable. He still doesn't quite have that, massive put-away aura that some pitchers do, and I think that he might need to develop a little bit of that. He doesn't have that, reliable 100% does it all the time strikeout pitch that I think will really elevate his game. He's of course got that sweeping curve that he likes to throw to righty batters. He throws that kind of down and away towards the bottom left corner of the strike zone, and that's a pretty sick pitch. And then generates a lot of swing and miss on that one. But until he can start, either generating some more velocity on that fastball, he doesn't throw a 98, 99 fastball. He's just got to work on his location a bit because he can get hit up easily if he leaves the ball hanging, and he can issue a few more walks than we like to see sometimes. But he was pretty good on Saturday, and unfortunately, amazing stats as so often is the case with Brandon Pfaadt's starts, didn't receive the run support. Kind of went down 4-1. Geno Suarez ended up hitting a 2-run homer. There we go, Geno again, to put the D-backs in reach. But, bottom of the 9th, 2 outs. We said we were going to talk about the ghost of Dansby Swanson. Here came again. He reached back from the dead, or in this case, the Windy City, and sort of made us. I think people are calling it a Superman play. Just like goes full stretch, two hands to tag out Garrett Hampson, who's got caught in no man's land, rounding third, trying to steal home, tie the game. Changed his mind, kind of ran back, and I think people are blaming the third base coach, and I think that's probably the right call. But either way, it wasn't great. It did cost the Diamondbacks the game when you had some high caliber bats. I know Lourdes yesterday was kind of cold, and he was the guy on the deck. But Lourdes is a guy who can come through when you need him and has done for the Diamondbacks in the past. So giving up an easy out and basically throwing an entire baseball game away wasn't great. But yeah, moving forward. Strangely, Hampson was rewarded for that error in a way in Game 4. As Ketel Marte was shifted to the DH, Garrett Hampson found himself starting at second base, and it was Erod on the mound for this one. And historically, it's never a good thing if you look through the record books. It's never a good thing for the Diamondbacks if they lose their first series of the season. So I saw on socials, a lot of guys were going into yesterday not necessarily calling a must-win scenario. I think it's far too early in the year for that, but there was a definite aura of stress around the fan base going into yesterday's game, and that was only exacerbated when the ghost of Dansby struck again at the top of the second, homering off of Erod. But Erod wasn't bad otherwise. Like, he made mincemeat of most of the Cubs until Seiya Suzuki got another homer in the sixth to make it 3-zip. Like, Erod struck out 5 and introduced a lot of very useful ground balls. He got out of it wasn't a bases loaded jam. He walked the first 2 batters, I think, in the third inning. He walked the first 2 and then got out of it with a ground double and then a fly out off of Suzuki the first time around. So, Erod had that composure, kept his head, didn't throw the game the moment he gave up the first few runs. It kind of fell apart a little bit. After that, Kyle Tucker added 3 more off of Joe Manaply, although Alec Thomas and Gabby Moreno had put 2 on the board for the Snakes at that point. But, the momentum really shifted bottom of the 8th is when the Cubs sort of started letting us into the game, and for once we showed a little bit of that killer Rattleback Diamonds. What am I trying to say? Diamondback Rattlesnake. There we go. Diamondback Rattlesnake killer instinct to sort of take those opportunities. Geraldo Perdomo hit a 2-run double. Lourdes Gurriel tied it with some Pena power for 2 more on a homer. Josh Naylor, who has been under some scrutiny a little bit for his defense, but actually has been under the radar excellent when it comes to batting, gave us the lead on an RBI single. But then, here's the big story for you. Up-stepped pinch hitter Ryne Nelson, who had never had an at-bat before, hit a ribby single off a 91-mile-an-hour high and outside pitch off of Eli Morgan to make it 8-6 Diamondbacks. And if you're the kind of person who I know a lot of my listeners are, kind of people who like interesting and weird stats, Ryne Nelson is the first full-time pitcher to record a hit since Zach Greinke in the 2021 World Series. There's a name and a stat for you. And we weren't really sure what had happened with Ryne this year. Would he be, the 5th starter? Would he go into the pen and be a long relief guy, or go to Reno to stay stretched out? Here's your answer. It's none of those. He's putting Ohtani and the Babe to shame in 2025. And with no warning, is going to become the greatest two-way player in history. You heard it here first, folks. 50-50 season incoming. His line right now, and yes, I know this is off one hit, and I'm being the funny Brit talking about baseball, but his line right now is a 1,000 batting average, 1,000 OBP, 1,000 SLG, and a 2,000 OPS. So shout out to Ryne Nelson. That's a pretty cool thing. I think social media, as I was watching the game, I was kind of following along on the feeds as well, and everyone kind of collectively facepalmed like, oh, damn it. Torey Lovullo's burned our DH again, and now we have a pitcher batting, and it's going to be Scott McGuff against the Yankees all over again, yada, 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 yada. Shout out to a few accounts I saw with that. I'm not remembering their name now, but there's a lady on Diamondbacks Twitter who only posts pictures of their cats if the Diamondbacks win, and they said, oh no, a pitcher coming up, and then 2 seconds later after I read that tweet, Ryne Nelson gets a hit, so... I've never been happier to say, eat your words, Diamondbacks fans. Continuing the recap, the Cubs crumbled, kind of went on from there. Alec Thomas and Corbin Carroll both added runs. Justin Martinez was the guy who earned the W, and AJ Puck was brought in to earn the save. And yeah, I got to admit, I was kind of skeptical about Torey's game-by-game approach to the closer role in the bullpen, but yesterday actually worked kind of well. Ultimately, I'm not really sure why everyone in the fandom is being so negative already. We're only 4 games into the year, and we got a 4-run comeback win over a team that definitely will be fighting for the playoffs. And yeah, 2025 looks set to be competitive, sure. And yeah, we have got some tightening up to do before we can start really steamrolling teams. But once the concrete foundations have set a little more, I think we've got good stuff to work with. We've already had guys go on the IL this year already, like Kevin Ginkles would certainly have been part of that opening day bullpen. We're not really sure where Jordan Montgomery would have slotted into that conversation had he not had Tommy John, and then like Adrian Del Castillo, who wasn't on the opening day roster and wasn't going to make it. Jose Herrera was picked for the backup catcher, so Adrian Del Castillo was starting the season in Reno, but he's a power bat option that may have been utilized at times, and he's on the IL already. So there's more to come from this Diamondbacks team for sure. We kind of didn't really ignite and like hit the ground running with like an electric spring training like maybe some teams have, like the Padres. They just went and swept the Braves, but they also weren't outstanding in spring training. Look at their record. I watched a couple of their games, and they perhaps have more of a weight of expectation on their shoulders because of at least they have bigger names on the team, but also there's less pressure on them because there's so much internal turmoil at the team. I don't know whether that would work, that there's more pressure because there's pressure to do well so that they can sort out the inner turmoil with the team, or there's less pressure because they know that there's not going to be an owner kind of getting up their backside about playing better. Who knows what's going on over the Padres? Honestly, I'm woefully misinformed. So if you're a Padres fan and you've sort of stumbled into the chat here and you're talking about all the stuff that I clearly don't know, I have no idea. But further into the desert, Diamondbacks, there's work to do for sure, and you're not going to really be able to do very much of that on the road to the Yankees with their supercharged silver slugger rocket powered bats. But I think we are going to see much better baseball from this Diamondbacks team. People always talk about in football over here in the UK, oh yeah, teams need time to gel after a transfer window and da. And this is very much a similar spine of a team that we've seen. But let's keep the faith a little bit. Let's not forget Torey Lovullo took a team that on paper was, you look at the names, was much worse than this, and Torey Lovullo took that team to a World Series. There was in that World Series year, Josh Rojas pitched at one point in that World Series year. That he's not even made the White Sox opening roster, if memory serves. This was a team that had Emmanuel Rivera. Was Emmanuel Rivera? Yeah. As one of its pretty much go-to third basemen, splitting the duties with Evan Longoria, who went completely missing in that year. So, yeah. Keep the faith, Diamondbacks fans. There is a lot more to come, and we're yet to really see a huge ignition from the likes of Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, the two people we were actually really excited for on this roster. They haven't really got kicking yet. It's all been Geno pretty much when it comes to hitting home runs. Josh Naylor has looked okay as well. We're all expecting him to provide a decent bit of pop at the plate, and then we called it last week on the show when we talked about Pavin Smith. Pavin Smith's been fine. He's been the DH. He's gotten out of his head a bit. He doesn't have to worry too much about the fact that he sucks in defense when he plays the outfield or when he plays first. So none of that anxiety's been creeping up on him, and he's just been focusing on his hitting, and he has been hitting. It's not just like little bloop roller singles or anything as well. Like, he's hitting for power. He's hitting the warning track fairly often. We're not quite seeing the kind of let's go kill Justin Verlander home run hitting that we have previously seen a few times from Pavin, but he's getting there, and we've got to wait for maybe some guys like Lourdes Gurriel to warm up. He hit a homer yesterday. Jake McCarthy's been kind of meh in center field, but you can always just swap him out with Alec Thomas, who collected I think 2 hits yesterday. So things are actually better than they seem. Like at the end of the day, we are .500 for the season. We don't have a negative record after the first series of the year, and that is always a good thing. I expect we will probably end up with one following the end of the series with the Yankees, but hey, anything's possible. I think MLB probably isn't going to do anything about those torpedo bats, but hey, it's the Yankees. They could always implode for no reason. Who knows? It will be Diamondbacks facing off against Paul Goldschmidt, which I know is sort of expected now. It's been a while since Goldie left, but that's always worth mentioning. People are going to talk about Aaron Judge until the cows come home. But yeah, Jazz Chisholm as well. Let's not forget he was a Diamondback at one point. I've been told by the good citizens of Reddit I can't really have him in my Diamondbacks theme team on MLB The Show because he never made a major league appearance for us. But hey, yeah, I'd still call him a former Diamondback. Like every week, my eBay recommended is a signed J Nasty Diamondbacks jersey, so I'll count him as that, and then potentially a chance to see some of the people who were floated names we talked about on the show during the Hot Stove League, people who might be traded if Yankees came looking for a starting pitcher. Would they get Zach Gallen? Would we go after Jason Dominguez or somebody like a Spencer Jones as well? So yeah, another set of late starts. I think the earliest one of these series in terms of first pitch times in the UK is about midnight, so that's going to be fun. But a bit more European friendly times coming later in the weekend against the Nationals. We got 1 6 o'clock start there, which thank the Lord for that. I love the 6 o'clock starts here because I can be tucked up in bed after having my dinner and watch some Diamondbacks baseball, and I hope you guys can feel a little bit of that chilled out mood too, despite all the stress that this team is about to put us through for the next 6 to 7 months. It's 150 odd games to go now. Let's try and remember not to let it dictate our entire mental health. I think it's probably a good place to wrap up the episode. Now, I want to say thank you very much to all you guys watching. Please go and check out the friends of the podcast over at the Home Run Travel Company if you're one of our UK listeners and you fancy seeing some baseball in the United States for yourself in person. There's 2 tours being run by our friends over at Home Run Travel this year, one to the West Coast, one to the East Coast. I will be on the West Coast tour before I depart and head over to see my Diamondbacks once again. The guy who runs it, Harry, great guy, all-inclusive, hotels, food, merch, whatever you want, they'll sort you out. Go check out Home Run Travel Company. We have been the T-Backs Podcast. This has been another episode. Please make sure you go and follow us over on socials at T-Backs Podcast. I've been your host at GB Diamondback, and please make sure you check us out over on TikTok at T-Backs. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.